What up, chat? It's been a hot minute. I've been dealing with like my foot, trying to keep it, you know, elevated and shit, stuff, whatever. I'm gonna be doing paperwork while we watch these videos. Yeah. Let me configure. The unknown.
It all started when I was 7 years old.
Closet.
I used to live in a small neighborhood with a large amount of woods next to our town. One day, my parents left me at home with my brother while they dropped my other brother off at football practice. That was the starting point.
What up, God War?
They had to stop abruptly in the middle of the road in the woods when they were driving back home. And that memory has been bothering my dad. Even now, he said. He said that he definitely saw something that day and remembered what it looked like. It was an extremely thin figure, around 7 to 8 feet tall. He was sure that it wasn't a bear, because when it saw their car, the thing stood up on 2 legs and ran away with a strange form.
Gross,
it had lots of blotches on certain parts of its body, while other parts were losing hair, or had none at all. And its back looked broken and poorly arched when it ran back into the woods. When my parents had warned me about it, even then, I never knew what it was. After I turned 10 years old, one day I had to stay home alone while my parents went to visit my uncle. So I invited 7 of my friends over.
What up,
who
Combo
I'll call
Jones?
Bella,
Thanks for the follow,
Riley,
my guy. I appreciate
Max,
it.
John, Kayla,
Just
Shannon,
hanging out tonight.
and Penelope. We had fun playing video games, watching movies, and things like that until midnight. Then I suddenly remembered that thing my dad had seen a few years ago.
How you doing tonight, Combo James?
Hey, why don't we go searching for that creature?
Combo Jones.
Looking at each other, we thought it would be a fun idea to try.
An email here.
So we grabbed our flashlights and headed out into the woods.
These guys are crazy. Why are you going after it?
Once we walked in, everything mysteriously got way creepier, and the weird sounds got louder. The whole area was totally dark, and the fear of getting lost was affecting all of us.
What's up? I'm just doing some scary stories while...
we heard a loud crunching noise.
Let me pause this real quick, because I feel like I don't have Discord. Yeah, there we go. I didn't even know Lizard was in here. What up?
He just joined as soon as I did.
Shine the flashlight in the direction of the sound.
I'm doing scary stories tonight. Hey, got you, girl. No problem. I heard you got some good anime.
There were some dead carcasses of deer.
Yeah,
and I could see that there
I try to
was
find the
some
good
other
stuff,
big
but it's
animal.
hard. A lot of it's kind of weird.
At first, I thought it might be
This
a bear
one looks
that
really
was
creepy,
eating
though.
off of those carcasses. However, that's not what it was. The thin, hairy, and almost 8-foot-tall creature was there.
Yeah.
It looked at
just
us
like,
with its
your volume's really low.
blood-stained,
I
sharp
gotta turn it up.
teeth.
Yeah, his volume's mad
bloodshot
low.
eyes.
I can barely hear him.
Then it slowly
Nah,
got
just
up
turned him up
and
to
let out a
200.
penetrating howl.
200, jeez.
Not caring if branches hit us or if we
I
got
think it's
cut or
just you're
bruised,
talking too
we all
quietly.
screamed and ran
Are
away
you
through the
serious?
woods.
Alright.
There we go. Now you're talking
We didn't know
better.
whether it was chasing after us or
Alright.
not, but we didn't
So you
care.
guys up for some
We
Apex
just
or
needed to
something?
get back
No, I
home
can't
as soon
play
as
anything.
possible.
I don't have a controller.
Finally, we jumped over
Oh
the
yeah, I
creek that
thought it
was
was
right
coming
in
this
front of my
weekend or
house,
something.
ran up the
It's
hill
coming, I
into my
just don't know
house, and
when.
then locked the door.
Oh, okay. It's all good.
Everybody all right?
Hop on Apex.
Breathing hard, I looked at my
I
friends,
have a
and then I
case number. I
realized
just can't
something.
find it. Just spreading that love and support.
Penelope
Be back
was
soon.
gone.
All right. I'll wait for you to be
We
back.
must have lost her in the woods somewhere as we ran away. Being terrified, I pulled out my cell phone with trembling hands,
I don't know
called
how long I'm gonna be
911,
playing for. I
and
gotta
told
do
them about our
crap load of stuff
situation.
tonight.
Within
Yeah,
15
same here.
minutes,
I already did my
paramedics,
stuff,
police,
though.
and our parents arrived.
I didn't.
We explained again what we had seen and what happened to Penelope.
Yeah.
The police searched the
Alright, so
entire
insane. You want
forest,
to run a couple of games with me or not?
but never found the
Sure.
thing
Alright,
or
bet.
Penelope either.
Yeah, you wanna move down a chat so we're not
The only
bothering Trini
thing
while she's
that
doing
had
her
been
stories?
discovered
Yeah,
was
sure.
some blood stains
Have fun with
of
your
hers.
stories, Trini.
Thanks. Bye.
Well, I'm 12 years
Bye.
old now, and none of us speak about what happened that day.
I don't know what the case
The
number
search
is.
for Penelope has been going on, but I'm positive that she's dead. Not just me. We all do. I recently did research on the thing and noticed that many other people had gone
Dang,
missing
bro,
in
how
my
do I
woods,
find it?
mostly kids. And Penelope's disappearance made her the 8th child to go missing in those
Damn,
woods.
Penelope, good job. Way to be
I
a
now
statistic.
no longer go into my woods
Way to be a
because I'm afraid
statistic.
that if I do, that thing will find me one day.
There's
and
Penelope.
I will end up like Penelope.
I'm sorry, but if a monster grabs my best friend, I'm fighting that monster. I don't care. Ain't nobody touching my girl Chloe.
My name is Caitlin. This incident happened when I was 14 years old, and I will
I'm trying
never
to do some
forget
paperwork
this
while
memory.
I do this, and I can't find what I'm
One
looking
day,
for in
I
this
was at
email.
home alone at my house. My mom was still at the office late at night, and my
You're my
two
husband, it's
siblings were at my
different.
grandparents' house, which was kind of far away from my home. At first, I was just enjoying my time alone, watching Netflix and doing some fun stuff. However, after a while, I got pretty bored, so I decided to invite some of my friends over. I asked my mom for permission and then called my friends to invite them over. A few moments later, while I was waiting for them, I heard a loud bang upstairs. I was sure that there was no one else upstairs. So I stood up and looked up the stairs with an anxious look on my face. When I was near the stairs, I could see that one of my dolls had fallen. I picked it up, and when I straightened my back, something caught my attention. A little girl was standing upstairs. Well, I could feel that she was staring at me.
What up, Ninja
even
Kirby?
though I couldn't see her face clearly.
What do you think of this
due to
story
the
so far?
darkness. I was terrified, and then someone rang the doorbell. I ran to see who it was, and luckily, my friends had arrived. Thank God, it was a moment of relief that my friends came over at the right time.
Oh, there's my
Soon,
case
I
number.
got my
Found
mind
it.
off of the girl I saw.
Yes.
We sat down in the living room and had fun talking with each other. An
I got
hour
all these
later,
cords on
one
me.
of my friends suggested that
I don't
we
know
should
how to have
take
it
some
where I can see
pictures
it.
together. So we gathered around one another. We took several selfies while laughing.
It's not
and
selfies if
chatting.
there's other people in
Later,
it.
as we scrolled through the pictures, we found something. There was a little girl standing behind our couch. What made us even more terrified was the fact that she had no face.
Oh, that's great.
I mean, her face was just an empty darkness. No eyes, no nose, and no mouth. Being terrified, I told Cassie to delete that picture right away. However, she said that something was wrong with her cell phone. I snatched the phone out of her hands and tried to delete it. But no matter what we tried, we couldn't delete the picture. Then we heard loud thumps. It sounded like someone's footsteps were coming from upstairs, and our light was flickering on and off at the same time. We thought that we couldn't stay inside anymore, so we rushed outside in a hurry. One of my friends, Christina, suddenly pointed at my bedroom window and said that there was someone in there.
Girl, I'm watching
I
this in the
raised
dark.
my
You're
eyes
terrified?
up and followed her
Look how
finger,
creepy that
and
is, yo.
there
She got no
was.
face.
It was the same faceless girl we had seen in the picture.
I would move. I would straight
My
up move.
friends
I'm
and
not
I
even living there
screamed.
anymore. I'm not even playing.
I called my mom
like,
and explained everything. My mom couldn't believe what I told her, so she made me calm down and said that she would be home in 5 minutes.
what day did I go to the freaking...
After she arrived home, she searched the entire house, but she couldn't find
Doctors.
any trace of the girl. I hoped that it was just our
BRB, guys. I gotta grab my
imaginations.
doctor's note.
However, we soon decided to move out of
Enjoy
the
the
house
spooky
because I
story.
kept seeing the girl after that incident. We finally moved, and from then on, my mom never wanted me to be home alone, so I always stayed with my siblings. I still have no clue why the girl haunted me, but I think it was because she wanted us to get out of the house. Well,
Ooh,
I'm
almost
just
dropped
glad that I don't see that
everything.
girl
All my
anymore.
pages. All my pages. Oh, okay. I'm back. Dang it, I missed the end of the story.
This happened to me while I was on my
I
way
turned on
home.
the lights. I legitimately was scared.
I was living
No,
in an
turn the lights
apartment at
off.
the time.
Lights
When
off.
I arrived on the first floor of
Don't
my
be a
building,
chicken.
there was a piece of paper hanging on the wall that said that the elevator was out of service. No, not again, I said to myself. I lived on a pretty high floor, so without any other choice, I had to walk up the stairs. I was walking up the stairs out of sheer desperation, and all of a sudden, I heard something. Then I began to feel uneasy. I knew that crimes often occurred around my neighborhood, especially targeting people who were alone. When I listened closely, I could hear a pair of men's shoes and a pair of women's high heels walking at the same time. I assumed that it was a couple.
I wish I had white
You
out.
guys are having a hard time like me. I'm struggling to walk up the stairs, especially this late at night.
There's just so much stuff.
I thought to myself. I sighed with relief and
My
turned
dog
my
saw
head
the screen
around.
and then barked because of the
However,
faceless
I
girl.
will
So even
never
your dog was
forget
scared.
what I saw at that moment.
Let's see if this one's scarier.
There was a man
We'll
who was
see.
crawling with a pair of men's shoes on his feet and
Ew.
a pair of high heels on his hands. He was crawling towards me.
Excuse me. That's disgusting.
This
Not my
happened a
bear
few
puppy.
years ago in the neighborhood I grew up in. When I was around 6 years old, there was an incident where an old man who lived right in front of my house was murdered by a robber.
Oh my god, I gotta look up the
Not
name and address.
only did the robber
on here?
steal all his money, but he also stabbed him
it
brutally
is.
with a
Perfect.
knife and then ran away. According to the police, the crime scene was as horrible as it sounds, and unfortunately, to this day, the robber still hasn't been caught. When they moved the old man's dead body and passed by my house, my mom covered my eyes with her hands so that I wouldn't see it. Nevertheless, I could see my neighbor's face through the gap between my mom's fingers.
What up?
After that,
Legend
even
had
after a
had
few
out, so I
months
just
had
thought I'd just
passed,
come and sit here while
the
I'm just
old
running a
man's
little bit.
house wasn't sold.
Oh, dude.
It was because there were a
Yeah, he
few
never sticks
strange
around for very
rumors
long.
spreading around the neighborhood.
Oh,
about
he
his
said he had to
house.
go cook something
Some
for supper or
said
something.
that people would always hear the old man's coughing and sobbing coming from inside whenever it rained. 10 years later, all of the people who moved into his house had to leave, and now his house is being used as a warehouse.
How much miles did it? God, how am I supposed to know this?
When I was in high school, I was crazy about a
let's
boy
see.
band
Let's put it into
and used to stay up
ways
late
and
at
take a
night
look.
watching their videos.
Let's see, chat. Let's see how
Because
far
of
away I
this,
am
I
from the
used to
doctor's
fall
office.
asleep at around 3 or 4 a.m. The town I lived in was sort of a new city under construction, so it was really quiet and there was no one outside during that time. One night, it was around 3 a.m., I suddenly heard a woman singing
So
outside.
2.3 miles.
It was an old song, and the strange thing was that the woman was singing
Join
just
wow.
one
Discord.
part of the
Alright, yeah, join
song
up on Discord.
over and over again. She didn't move on to
Were
the
you
next
able
section.
to check that
She would
form I
just
sent you?
start singing,
Check
pause
the
for a
form you
minute,
sent me?
and then continue
Oh,
singing
for
again.
the what do you call
Out
it?
of curiosity, I opened the window and was about to sing the next verse of the
Can't remember
song to
what it is.
surprise her.
Oh,
However,
for the
before
Astro
that,
controller.
I sent
Oh,
a
I
text
returned it.
message
I'm
to
getting
my
another
friend.
controller.
Hey, someone is singing outside and
Is it the
keeps
same
repeating
one, but
the
is
same
it
part.
still by
LOL,
Astro
should
or?
I sing
No, it's the
along with
Nacon
her?
Revolution, the
Not
competition
long
of the
after,
Astro.
My friend responded, and
Oh,
then
okay.
I had to shut the window quietly
So you got your money back.
because
I
I was
will be,
terrified.
yes. The new
text
controller is cheaper
said,
too.
Don't do that. That's a ghost.
I see.
When ghosts find someone to harm, they first sing and then wait for the person to sing
Oh,
along.
that's kind of cool. I just looked up the Revolution.
Yeah. What's today's date? Shit.
There's a building that has a parking
Hate that when
garage
I'm charging
with a
my phone,
bicycle
it doesn't
parking
tell me
area
the
on the
date.
lowest level that me and a
In
group
my
of
new
my friends
calendar, I
like
have
to
to
hang
actually
out
click
at
on
and
it.
skateboard. I
I'm
called
so
up my
bad.
friends Jordan, Dorian, Jalen, and Aditya one Sunday to ask if they wanted to go
I have to
skateboarding with
start
me at the
school.
garage.
Not tomorrow, but
They
the
all
day
agreed,
after.
so we met up at my house and
This
rode our
is gonna be
skateboards and
interesting.
I
longboards
have
through
to
the
fill out the
unkept
stupid
paths between the
workers'
apartment
comp
buildings
paperwork,
and
and I'm
arrived at the
so
garage.
confused by all of
We
this.
waited for a car to drive in and set
Oh,
off
is
the
that when
sensor
you
to open the garage door.
sprained your ankle or whatever?
Then we
There's like
tailgated in.
mad pages that I have to
When we
deal
got
with.
inside, we rode our boards around, just practicing some skills.
Still watching scary stories?
Eventually, we rode down to the
Instructions
lower level
form?
and
Yeah,
sat
I'm
in the
still watching
bicycle
scary
parking
stories.
area to have a break and drink some soda. All of a sudden, a car pulled up and parked in a spot that was
Thankful
visible
I
from
didn't
the
have to
bicycle
fill it out
parking
this summer
area.
after
The car sat in
Where
the
I was
spot
in.
with its engine running, and the driver still sitting inside. Then another van pulled up and shut off its engine in the middle of the road.
Why is it asking me to do
Both
the same thing
drivers got
twice,
out
basically?
and met
This
each
is so
other
weird.
halfway. They were both tall and intimidating with their hoods up. One driver passed the other driver money, But then they
I
suddenly
was
began
putting
to
in the
argue.
ranked wins the other day.
We all watched in awe as they flung their
You're
hands around
what?
dramatically and
I was
started
getting
to shout.
so many ranked wins the
We
other day.
couldn't make out
Good
what they
job.
were saying
I think I
since
had
the loud
3
echo
by the end of the
distorted their
day, so I
voices.
made it to silver or something.
We all froze as the van driver pulled out a gun and shot the other driver in the
I think
throat.
I'm in silver
The
2 now,
driver
so I'm happy
collapsed,
about that.
blood pooling around him.
Yeah, the lower ranks
The
are
van's
definitely
driver
easy to
yelled
get out of.
something,
You should
and
grind
then we
that as
saw
much
2
as you
other
can and
guys
get
get out of the
yourself
van.
out of there.
One tossing the body into the back seat, and the other began wiping up the blood. Something was
Just
going
one
on
thing when
here, and
there's,
I could
like-
tell we were in danger.
Some of the
Dorian
teammates
whispered
just
that we had to
literally
leave
do nothing the
now.
whole game.
Yeah,
We all
that's
began
true.
to quietly grab our skateboards and started hiding behind a wall. But the blood cleaning guy spotted Jalen as he was making his way over and yelled to the driver. The van started up, and right then,
We were
Aditya
probably
screamed.
in one of the more
We all
intense
threw
fights
down our
in Apex,
skateboards and
right?
began
That I
pushing
probably
away
had.
as fast as
And some guy
possible.
was sitting there AFK.
I could hear so
Yo,
many
did
noises in
Ninja
my
join
ears
up in
like
here? Are you in here,
skateboards
Ninja?
moving, voices shouting and screaming,
Don't
and the
be
roaring
so-
van
He
behind
said he
us.
was going to be joining the Discord.
Dorian was on an electric
He
skateboard
joined
and was
Discord, he
taking the
didn't
lead
join
as
in
we
the
wound
chat
around
yet,
the
though.
ramps,
Oh, okay.
rising to the next level.
We're in the
Jordan
general
was next
chat.
to me,
if
and
you want to
Aditya
join
was
up.
close behind us on his scooter. Jalen, who had been the last to leave, was falling behind, and we could see the van speeding up behind him. I yelled for him to run to the side,
Is this
and he
just
popped his
instructions?
skateboard into his hands and took a sharp turn to the left, running up
We're
a
not
fire
supposed to
escape.
fill this out?
The van screeched around the corner as Dorian began approaching the garage door. And that's when I realized something. We had to wait for a car to trigger the sensor and open the door. I yelled at Dorian to take the staircase to the right, and he did. Jordan and I hopped off our skateboards and ushered Aditya into the staircase. We burst out into some dirty apartment floor, and I quickly called Jalen. He picked up and told us he was outside the apartment building by the main road. We held our skateboards and ran through the apartment floor until we found the fire escape. Then we managed to run outside and met Jalen, where we called the cops. After the cops arrived, they started to search the parking garage. They couldn't find any traces, nor the cars there, so they decided to check the security footage. The footage revealed the van's license plate was covered with duct tape, but they did catch the license plate of the car of the driver who'd been shot. They said they'd keep us updated and gave us a lift home. Since then, we've never seen the van again or gotten any important information from the cops. My friends and I
Greetings.
have recently resorted to the much safer
up.
and public skate park nearby.
Did you
Never
miss me?
visited
It's been
that
forever
garage
since I've been
again.
here.
Yeah, sure, I did miss you.
Shoot,
Well,
I don't know what this file number is. Why they gotta make this so complicated?
it's about as complicated as 2 plus 2.
No, workers'
This
comp
is a
shit is
story
like
that
complicated,
happened to me not
complicated.
too long ago.
Well, yeah, they don't, I mean,
It
they want to
was,
make it hard for you to get free money.
There was a big
so
two-story
annoying, like,
house
I'm
in
like-
town, which was
I'm-
rumored to be haunted.
I'm not built for
Out of
this.
curiosity, one of
Wait,
my
you're
best
signing
friends,
up for workers'
Carlos,
comp?
and I
Yeah,
decided it would
I
be a
was
good
told
idea
to do
test
it,
out
but I
this
got
rumor.
hurt, and I thought I did it correctly,
we
but then I
went to that
realized that there were
house for
forms that I
trick or
needed to
treat.
like print out.
It was
So that's what
about
I did today. I had to go
11:45
get printer
p.m.,
ink
it
and
took us
print
a
it
while
out.
to get to the house, as it was a bit far away from the
I
other
don't know what the
houses.
fucking
When we arrived at the house, we
OWCP
rang the
file number
doorbell.
is. What the hell is
A
that?
man who looked as if he was in his mid-30s suddenly
Right.
came out. He opened the door almost right away. He had a cigarette in his hand. I could see that he was dressed in a hoodie and ripped jeans.
He's very quick
And
coming into
he
chat
looked
and
kinda
just
tired.
leaving, isn't he?
Mm-hmm.
My friend mentioned the rumor about his house being
Mysterious
haunted.
person.
We laughed out loud, but he didn't reply to anything we said. He just stared at us. And then he said, "You kids are almost a little late for Halloween. It's going to end in 2 minutes." Well, he was right. It was almost
Why,
12 a.m.
hello there.
He then told us the candy was in his room and offered for us to come in. We sat on the living room couch waiting for the man who had gone upstairs. However, when he
This
came
is so
back,
confusing.
he insisted on us going upstairs because he had Reese's chocolate, which was my favorite at the time. So, being a pretty mindless teenager, we took him up on the offer. We went upstairs, following behind him, and went into one of
Yeah,
the
I
dimly
got
lit
a
rooms.
bit had to come off my pet.
Right at that
summer to
instant,
sign up for
I
that or
could see
something.
that there were a
I don't
lot of
remember.
different
You
kinds
what?
of knives in the room.
I think it's something had
It
to
looked
come
as
off
if the man
my
were
paycheck
collecting
in the
knives.
summer for
We
workers'
thought
comp.
it was
I
a
don't
pretty
remember
cool
though.
hobby.
Why, you got hurt?
The man approached us
No,
and gave us
just
each 2
in
pieces
case
of
that
chocolate.
did happen.
Although he still didn't say anything, we thanked him
It's so
and turned
confusing.
around to go downstairs. All of a sudden, Carlos screamed
Well,
in
like
pain
Grim
and fell
said,
down the
I don't
stairs.
think they really
I
want
turned
you to
around and saw the man was
make it
holding
so
what
easy
appeared
that,
to be a
like, they
red
can get
knife,
I'm gonna
which
Google
was
it.
Money
probably one from his collection.
OWCP.
With mixed emotions, my adrenaline immediately kicked in. I tried to punch the man in the face, but he turned back and then stabbed my
Gosh,
leg.
You could say no
I
to
barely managed to hold
Reese's.
back the pain and literally
I
knocked
agree.
him out
What
with
up,
5 punches.
Corey?
The man collapsed.
I'm trying to figure
I
this
took the
paperwork
knife out of my
out,
leg
yo.
and started limping, holding Carlos in one arm. When we finally escaped from that house, I could see that there was blood all over Carlos's back. With shaking hands, I called the police. As soon as they arrived, they arrested the man after he had regained consciousness. The ambulance took me and Carlos to the hospital. I wasn't hurt too bad, but Carlos was apparently stabbed twice in the back and bled out a lot. He was in the hospital for 2 weeks to recover.
Ask Daddy to do
Sometime
that.
after I got out of
Close the door
hospital,
behind you.
the police officer
Close the door,
reported to
Damien.
my parents that the man had apparently been a registered sex offender.
Holy crap! I
and
didn't
had
know this
raped
was a
few
thing.
children before.
What?
Did you know there's
Luckily,
golden flat
he
lines
was
in
sent
Apex?
to jail right after they arrested him.
I did not.
After all of that, I never went inside a stranger's house
Am I
again.
gonna have fun today?
And to this day, I'm still afraid of what would have happened if I
I don't
wasn't
know if
able
it's
to
the same
hold
as
back
my
the pain of being
case number,
stabbed
but I'll
and
put
had
it.
failed to
I'll put
escape
it
from
down.
that man.
Anyways.
This happened not long after we moved into our house in 2003. It was a nice and big house, which was made in the 1950s. One day I was in my backyard watering the grass, and then out of the corner of my eye, I saw something that made me pause. There was a man standing next to the shrubs near our backyard's wall. He was dressed like a carpenter. His head looked like it was tilted sideways, and his body was slightly facing our fences sideways. Then he saw me and smiled kindly at me. At first, I thought he was fixing someone's house and that it was his job. However, only after
Dang
he
it, I
faced
forgot the
me,
date again.
I realized that wasn't the case. When I
7th
looked at
September.
him with
7th,
narrowed
okay.
eyes, I noticed that his neck was visibly broken, causing his head to awkwardly tilt to the side. I then saw that he waved at me once, but I was too shocked to scream at the time. After I regained consciousness, I looked around, but he had vanished and had literally faded away. 2 nights later, I woke up at 3 a.m. Noise was coming from my ceiling. It sounded like someone wearing construction boots was walking very slowly. I started to freak out, thinking that it might be a thief. However, I suddenly realized that that part of the roof was so thin,
What the
which
frig
meant
is this guy
nobody
with the
could walk
triple
on
tape?
it. The steps abruptly
legend,
stopped
apparently.
after a while, and when I felt at
I'm
ease,
missing my
I heard
scan.
another horrible sound. I heard a sharp scream that sounded like a man, then a loud thud, as if someone had dropped on my ceiling,
I think I
followed
did this
after.
good. I don't
I
know.
covered my head with a blanket. My hands and
Super
whole body
confusing.
shivered, and after 10 minutes of nothing, I peeked outside. It was completely quiet. I saw and heard nothing, but I couldn't fall back asleep that night. The next morning, I started to look up the history of the house. To my surprise, it turned out that there was a
Think I'll
report
fax
about the
the
carpenter I met a few days before
The
in the
doctor's note
backyard.
too.
In 1958, he had been hired
Probably
to fix
your
the
boss,
roof while
maybe?
the owners were on vacation.
Well, they gave me a number to
However,
fax
the
it to.
carpenter
Does
had fallen
UPS
abruptly
fax? I
through the
don't even
weak
know.
spot on the roof while he was working and had broken his neck. He couldn't scream for help,
Oh.
and no one ever knew what
Gotta
happened to
Google
him
it.
as the owners were gone for 2 weeks. He was finally found
See how
when they
much it
came back,
costs.
but had already died. This happened right above my bedroom. Suddenly, I felt bad for the poor guy, and I guess he's still looking after things. Since then, I've seen him sometimes, but I'm no longer afraid of him.
I don't think fax is like sending it. I think it's like sending it
This story is about
online or
when I
something
first
to, like,
moved
a
to the
printer
city
that
and joined the
accepts it.
company.
Yeah,
And
that's
it
all it
automatically-
is.
Our company
It
was
just
running a
prints out after
dormitory
that.
at the time, and
I
was
just
the one
don't
from
have
the
a fax
countryside.
machine. I have a
so
printer,
I decided
but
to stay
it's
in the
not set up
dormitory.
like a fax machine. So UPS
One day after
stores
work,
are
I
as
came back to
follows:
the
$1
dormitory
to
and was
fax
eating
one
my dinner with the
page,
TV on.
$2 to fax
It
one
was
page
almost
nationally.
midnight
So it's only
after
$1.
working
I've only got a
overtime.
couple pages.
I was
That
laughing and
works.
watching some comedy shows. And then I felt a sudden strangeness. You know, like it feels like someone is staring at you. Feeling weird, I turned my head toward the window. And I couldn't move as my whole body stiffened with a tremendous chill.
That's funny. Astro responded to my
I couldn't
email.
even scream.
Sorry, Astro.
The woman's face was stuck in the
What'd
window
they
as I
say?
Can you
turned
bet I
casually to
won't
look,
make my dog bark? I bet you
And
probably
she was
could.
staring
I
at
bet
me
I could make your dog
without
bark.
any movement. Now,
What
let's
did
think about
Astro
it.
say?
The windows in the
They
dorm were
told me
not
to do
even
everything
small.
that I did.
It was just the
basically.
size of a normal person's upper body. But look, a face big enough to fill that size of a window? Can you imagine what it was?
Jesus Christmas.
And what was scarier was, I was on the 5th floor at the time. How could she even stand over there, staring at me?
I had a nightmare like this one
I was
time.
frozen. I couldn't run away. I could only just watch her glaring eyes. It was lucky that I could move as the ghost disappeared the moment someone knocked on my door. One of my coworkers in the next room came to my room saying that he had something urgent to do. And when he looked at my pale face, he asked me if I was okay.
I'm probably gonna head over for a little
So
while.
I explained to him what I had
Okay.
just saw. And
Come
then
watch
his
the
face
stream
looked a
if
little
if
stiff.
your thing will cooperate with you.
Well, he didn't say anything
I highly
anymore,
doubt
but
my
I
wife
knew
will
it.
cooperate with me tonight.
I was sure.
I think someone's
I'm not
streaming
the
a movie
only one
somewhere
who
that's
saw
like
her
down
here.
our Apple TV, so it's not gonna work.
Anyway, something strange has happened to me since then. Sometimes when people get together and talk
Calculated,
about
Jenny.
ghost stories, I suddenly start to feel nauseous. Like ghosts are coming to see me. For example, one day I was with my friends in a restaurant, and as soon as they started talking about ghosts, my skin turned pale, and I started sweating all over my body.
And he's shook.
At first, they thought I was lying or trying to prank them. But when I looked at the door with a serious look on my face and told my friends not to keep telling those stories, they all had to shut up.
I wouldn't shut up.
I
I'd be
think
like, yo, don't be a
Something's
bitch.
wrong with me. So, anyone who's watching this story, I hope you guys always check out the window, especially when you're alone in your house. Always.
I wonder if that's true. Like, did you really see somebody like that?
I
don't know.
used to live with my grandmother,
Can you
who
make my
died a
dog
few
bark
years
in
ago.
general?
My
Alright.
grandmother had suffered a cerebral
Bet.
infarction during her lifetime.
Are you gonna talk
so
when you
she
get in here?
couldn't use her arms or legs at all, and she couldn't even speak. She could only mumble and grunt. Because I spent a lot of time with my grandmother, I felt sorry for her whenever I saw her. One day, my family gathered together at my house to celebrate a big holiday. While we were eating delicious food and chatting with each other, my grandmother was sitting alone in her room. A few
Aw.
hours had passed, and it was time for
Greetings.
everyone to go home.
Hello.
So my relatives
Look
said
at
their
you.
goodbyes.
Finally got your mic going.
However, my grandmother was still
What?
in her room at that time.
Finally got your mic
So I
going.
stayed with her. I sat
Yeah.
next to her, just in case.
Okay.
Grandma,
I'm gonna
do you
turn on
wanna go
face cam,
outside
but I'm
and
not showing
say
my
goodbye to
face.
everyone? I asked.
It's okay.
looking
I'm
at
watching
her
the video,
face.
so I can't see you anyways.
Then Grandma slowly turned her head
Oh,
towards
okay.
me
Yeah.
and opened
Try
her
to make her
mouth.
bark.
I'm embarrassed.
Woof.
Tired.
At that instant, I couldn't believe
Woof,
that she
woof.
spoke with such
Or should I go
clear
meow?
and accurate pronunciation.
I don't know.
A few years
I don't know
later,
which one is
after my
better.
grandma had died, I told my family
Yo,
what
this
happened
story-
She's tired, that's why.
when I was at the funeral
I think
hall,
she's tired.
but no one believed me.
It is pretty late.
Today, I'm going to talk about a story that I read somewhere. A few years ago, a body was found in the countryside. It was especially difficult to identify the victim or the perpetrator of that incident because the body had been dead for quite a long
Oh my
time.
gosh.
And to make matters worse, the bones had changed and were bleached. However,
Yo,
the
they
police
bleached
found
the
one
bones?
strange
That's
thing in
mad
this difficult
smart.
situation. Only one finger from its body remained completely intact. They asked the National Forensic Service, and they finally completed the identification on the body's finger. Furthermore, they succeeded to arrest the criminal.
Bro,
as
how
a
did you
result of
bleached the bones and you left the
It
fingertip?
turned out that
What,
the assailant was her roommate.
what are you doing?
They said that he beat her to death on a rainy day and buried her in the mountain behind their house. After that, the detective who was in charge said in his interview, "When you're in charge of a case, there are often things that occur that can't be explained. However, I can tell you that ghosts really exist." I'll admit that what I'm about to tell you is not that creepy.
Great.
My grandmother passed away
Great
not
way to
too
start.
long ago. After staying 3 days in the funeral home, we were supposed to go to the cemetery following her cremation. They said it would take about an hour, so my mom told me to take a nap in the car until the cremation was done. Since I was the one who had to drive later, I went back to my car alone and fell asleep. However, not long after, someone started shaking me. I heard my name, so I slowly opened my eyes, and my grandmother was sitting next to me. "Grandma?" I asked, rubbing my eyes, and she smiled at me. "Yes, it's me. Your grandpa is calling me. I'll go first. So stop sleeping and get up." I really missed her.
I'd be like, Grandma, what the hell? Let me
Lying
take a
in my
nap.
dream, I suddenly woke up with a surge of longing for her. I kept crying and then came out of the car. At that moment, I saw my family walking towards me, carrying a box of grandmother's ashes and her picture. I immediately told my mom about my dream, and then she patted me on the back and said this: "I guess Grandma wanted to say goodbye before she left.
Aw.
Maybe you were the only one who was sleeping, so she wanted to say goodbye to you."
Let me tell y'all, they put way too many pickles on this Chicken Little. Way too many.
One evening, I was looking for an internet cafe because I needed to send a few emails. I spotted one in the new building.
Oh my god, my
The
heart
sign said it was on the
scared
6th
me.
floor. When I walked through the
Is that your
entrance,
dog?
It was a dark hallway.
Yeah,
that
I
led
told
to a
you,
small
bet.
elevator.
I told you, bet.
I pressed the
Sounds like
call
a
button
cute
and
little
when the
yelp.
doors opened, I stepped inside.
You got a little dog?
In a lot of Asian
Yeah.
countries, many buildings do not have a fourth
What kind
floor.
of dog?
The number 4 is considered bad luck because the word 4 sounds almost the same as the word for death.
He sounds like he's like
When it stopped,
a
and the doors
chihuahua or
opened,
something.
I was about to step out when I realized that something was wrong.
Does
The hallway
she?
was in total
Oh.
And
darkness.
she's like 7
By
months
the light
old.
emanting from the elevator, I could make out.
I gotta turn your audio down because it's at 100%. I never adjusted yours. There we go. Much better. There's the greetings to prove.
You.
Oh, no, you're too quiet, so I gotta turn you up a little bit. Oh look, I can see your little doggy. I'll click on it. Let's see. How do I? Make it bigger. There we go. Puppy! It's a puppy! Look at the little puppy face! Puppy! Oh my goodness, he's so cute! Or she's so cute! Look at that nose! Look at that little button nose! That's a little stuffed animal. Oh my gosh, I can't. Cuteness overload. I would literally smother this dog. That's too cute. Alright, now back to the scary stories.
Out a random piece of furniture covered with white
I'm gonna
cloth.
leave the call, talk on
It
stream.
looked like it
Okay.
hadn't been touched in years. I thought
Peace.
I might have gotten off
Peace.
on the wrong floor, so I checked the buttons, but none of them were lit up. There was nothing to indicate which floor I was
This kid
on.
really got lost on an
Just
in
then,
an
I
elevator.
noticed something moving at the end of the darkened hallway. I couldn't quite make out what it was, but it looked like a person dressed in some type of gown. The figure was moving slowly down the hallway towards the elevator. It creeped me out, and in a panic, I started pressing the closed door button. All of a sudden, the light in the elevator flickered and turned off.
Bro, I'm punching it.
Into the pitch darkness.
Real quick, punching it real quick.
I was so freaked out, I almost wet myself.
Piss
Just
yourself
as I was about
later,
to
bro.
leave completely,
Swing
the lights
first.
flickered back on. The doors closed. The
I can't
elevator
stress that
jolted
enough,
back to
Chad.
life and
Swing
began to
first.
descend again. I breathed a sigh of relief. When the doors opened this time, I was at the internet cafe. I went over to the counter and told the girl who worked there and what had happened. As she listened, her face grew pale. She said that some of the customers and a few of her co-workers had experienced the same thing. She had never experienced anything herself, but she told me about the history of the building.
Cause the ghost knows she gonna slap a
Apparently,
hoe.
the fourth floor had been a hair salon.
If I was a ghost, I wouldn't go after somebody that would slap
It was
me.
prospering and doing pretty good until one of the women who worked there killed herself in the salon. Nobody knew the reason why.
How
The
do you
salon
manage to kill
continued
yourself in a
operate, but
salon?
They were plagued by weird and inexplainable events. Sometimes when customers were having their hair washed,
Oh my
the water would
gosh.
turn as red as blood. Other people claimed that when they looked in the mirror, they would catch glimpses of a ghostly figure standing behind them. When they turned around, there would be no one there. Because of these events, the salon developed a bad reputation and began to lose customers.
Uh-ohs.
Eventually, they were forced to close down.
Aw, that's so
The building's
sad.
owner tried to rent the fourth floor out to other businesses, but when they found out what had happened,
Ain't nobody buying
nobody
that.
would take it. Finally, the
I'd
owner
run
reduced
too,
the
girl.
price
Get
to
outta
nearly
here.
Nothing, and it was rented by a businessman who planned to open a station.
Chat, let me tell you, don't go buying no
However,
haunted
When they
place.
tried to do some renovations, on
Don't
the
do
floor,
it.
There was a series of mysterious accidents.
See, look, this is why
The
you don't do it.
workmen's tools would sometimes disappear, only to be found in strange places. A large mirror suddenly shattered when
Imagine
nobody
he was
was
too
near,
short to reach it.
and the workman had his hand crushed when the
That'd be
elevator
funny. I would do
closed
something like that if I was a
unexpectedly.
ghost.
Eventually, the workmen were
Ah,
so spooked that
what a
they
dum-dum.
refused to continue. The building's owner gave up trying to rent the fourth floor out and just
Bro,
shut it
break
down.
that fourth floor down. Get rid
He
of
had the
it.
buttons in the elevator
Throw the whole
replaced,
floor away.
and it was reprogrammed that nobody could go on the fourth floor.
Good.
At least that's what's supposed to happen. For some reason, when people took the elevator, it would sometimes stop on the fourth floor. And when the
Uh-oh.
doors opened, some people would see a figure coming toward them in the darkness.
Ooh. How she ain't even fight back? In a spa, you could kill yourself by choke, drown, blood loss from God knows what, and etc. Yeah, but it looked like that chick hung herself. Like, how do you hang yourself in a salon? Like, how do you have that level of privacy? You must have hung yourself in a bathroom or something, because where else are you gonna do it? A random closet? What are you doing in? How
When I
people
was
let
a
you
little
get into a
girl,
random
I had the
closet?
same dream several times. In these dreams, I used to see an old lady who kept running after me. She was wearing Korean traditional clothes called a hanbok and put her white hair up. Whenever it happened, she was kind of far away from me, so I tried to run away from her at full speed. But then, when I turned my head around,
Turn
in
around
less
and
than
hit her.
3 seconds, she had already reached me and was right behind
Bro,
me
hit her.
with an angry look on her face and stretching
Smack
out
that
her
hand. Break it off. Come
So
on.
I always woke
Ugh.
up crying when I felt like I was going to get caught by her.
What a little
That
baby.
horrible situation repeated over and over again whenever I had a dream. However, the interesting thing was that I never
Honey
got caught
Roast.
by her
What
in
up,
my
Honey
dream.
Roast? I like your name. Your name
Because I
makes
was
me
so
hungry.
young at the time. It was really scary to see that old lady in my dream. So I tried to not fall asleep.
Bro, tell me you're
But
not
eventually,
punching
I
a ghost
couldn't
if he's
win and
pulling
sleep
up
took
behind
over
you.
my
I
body.
don't care how scared I am.
And the same thing happened again.
This, right now, because my controller is broken and I'm waiting on a new one to come in, I figured I'd do some, like, scary animated stories to try to, like, keep the stream going, get everybody interested and stuff like that. But, yeah, once I get my controller back, then I can start playing. But I still do want to keep doing, like, every now and then some just chatting stuff instead of playing. You feel me? You're 10 years old, Ninja?
In one dream,
Little baby
I was
peanut.
playing at the playground with my older brother. We were playing with some dirt, and I could see the old lady
Bro,
watching
not
us
again.
as usual.
You have to fight her at
To
this
be more
point.
specific,
Like, you have to.
She was staring at me.
It's standard procedure.
Run! Hurry! As soon as
Oh
I
my
told
God.
him that, she ran towards us. But this time, she looked even more angry than usual.
Look at that
I was in a
face.
hurry, so I yelled at my brother to go up on the slide, and we both ran towards
Yep, let's
it.
run up a slide. I
was
bet
going
you
to
that
go
was
up the
hard.
slide, but suddenly I
You
stumbled
slipped?
and
Yeah.
fell down.
Well, no, duh.
As
What are
she
you
was
running up a
approaching, I
slide
was about
for?
to scream, but to my surprise, she just passed me. And
went
then
for
she
him.
angrily grabbed my brother's leg with one hand and
Chill,
pulled him downwards.
bro.
Being terrified, I cried and yelled at her to let go of him.
I should,
And
but
then
I don't wanna.
I suddenly woke up. When I woke up, I realized that my whole body was drenched in cold sweat.
You
A few
let her
days
get your
later,
brother.
An unforgettable and unbelievable
Weak.
incident happened to me. My brother was in a car accident. Not to mention his teeth, cheekbones, ribs, right leg and shoulders were all smashed. It was
Wow.
just horrible. But since the accident, I couldn't stop thinking of the old lady who I'd met in my dream. Well, it's been a long time now, but I still remember her face so vividly. Since my brother's accident, the old lady was no longer in my dreams. However,
Good.
to this day, I'm still really curious. Why did the old lady appear in my dream? And what did she want to say to me?
Learn how to play games with that Guitar Hero turntable. A turntable?
I'm someone who goes on a deep
I feel like
end
I
off
would
web
make good
constantly.
music if I knew how to work
It's
one
not
of
what people
those.
think. Where it's
I
evil
like
and
music.
overpopulated with crazy people. That's
But
only a small percentage of the
Can you
dark
do
web.
it with kind of long nails?
Years ago,
Do you have to have short
my
nails?
girlfriend broke up with me.
I don't know how it works.
And I put her personal information on a forum. And soon after that, she disappeared. It's been a while since that happened. And I've ran into people that
You
have
literally
disrespected
caused her
me
to get
since.
kidnapped.
I'm not an intimidating guy, nor do I look intimidating.
You're a piece
Nor
of
do I
shit.
ever have physical or verbal conflicts. I always think to myself that these people don't know what could happen to them. I work at a fast food restaurant.
What a
And at the
dweeb.
time of this story, my manager was really on my case about everything. I would be
Good.
late, mess up orders, have an attitude with customers, and some other stuff I could name, but it's so much. I understood that I was messing up, but the tone that this guy would talk to me embarrassed me in front of my coworkers, and sometimes in front of customers. One day, though,
Great.
that was the last straw. So
Gonna
one
put
day
his
I walked
stuff up
into work,
online too?
5 minutes before I was due to clock in, and my manager out loud said that the window liquor is finally on time.
Window
in front of
liquor.
customers and my coworkers. Everyone laughed at me. During my whole shift that night, he would direct smart comments toward me, while still yelling at me for everything that I did wrong. I made up my mind. I was going to find that forum and give his information.
Bro,
walk
he's
home,
doing it a second
I was going
time.
back and forth with myself about whether to do it or not. By the time I made it home, I made up my mind. I didn't shower nor did I change clothes. I went
You a
straight to my laptop.
stanky
and
ass
I searched.
dweeb.
I possibly clicked maybe 100 links because on the dark web there are links that will take you down any rabbit hole. A link named Pork Chop piqued my interest. When I clicked it, I was directed to an About page. It only said 6 words.
We find it, we chop it.
we chop it.
Here's an example of what we
And
do.
another
Yeah,
link
let me
that
see,
said,
let me
here's
see.
an example of what
Show
we do.
me.
I
Show
clicked
me
it,
the
of course.
goods.
As soon as I clicked on it, the picture went to the point of view from an old school camera, with the date and time in the corner of the screen. The person behind the camera approached the man and followed him. A few minutes go by, and the man noticed what was
I was
happening.
about to say, you didn't
He
notice?
turned around and approached the camera while yelling and screaming at the person for following him. Then all of a sudden, you see 5 huge guys dressed in black wearing a pig mask run from behind the man and drag him into the dark. The person holding the camera turns the camera to his or her face and leaves it there for about 5 to 10 minutes.
That's
That
long?
person also wore a pig mask, but all you could hear was the man screaming and sounds that I don't want to describe in the background. The camera was then
chopping
turned back
noises, I
around
guess?
and the sight that I saw was disturbing. It was something that no one would ever
He
want to
said,
see. Some people say that they wouldn't wish on their worst
these
enemy,
killers.
but I did. After the video was over, there were links. One said pork.
Don't
another
let me
said
get my
chop.
hands on pork chop.
clicked on the
Bro,
pork
there's
and
a
it
lot
prompted
of
me to
people
put in a code.
put on that
I didn't have
list.
one, so I backed out. So I clicked on chop. There was information that needed to be filled out, like name, height, description, and place. I filled out all the info for my manager.
Oh
In
boy.
the place, it was my job. I submitted the form. At the end of the screen, it said, "See you soon." 4 days later, while at work, my manager approached me and decided to apologize for the way he treated me.
Bro, now you
And
really
offered
gonna
to
feel
give me
guilty.
more hours and said that he will work with me more often because he sees potential in me.
Aww.
A few hours later, it was close to the end of the night. My manager helped me with the trash and took it out for me. As
That's
I
when
was
he
putting
gets
chairs
killed.
on top of the table getting ready to mop, I looked outside and saw my manager looking over at something, but he looked worried. I moved to get a better look and I saw what he was looking at.
Pig
He was
heads?
surrounded by 6 people in a pig mask with weapons in their hands.
Oof.
I ran outside as they swarmed him, except for one person. He had a camera. I forgot all about these guys, and then I put his information on the website.
This is all your
I
fault.
ran outside as they approached
Killed
him.
2 people, your
He looked at
ex-girlfriend
me
and
for
him.
help, but I ran back inside and called the police.
Yo, he ran
It took
back
them 10 minutes to
inside.
get there. When I looked back outside,
It's too late, the guy's
what
dead,
I
yeah?
saw was the most disgusting thing I've ever seen.
Took his head
I
off?
wish I can get the image out of my head. Between the time of me initially seeing them, calling the cops, and running back outside, these guys were gone. But my manager was still there. I went to his funeral the next week. The next day I received an anonymous email that had the whole video. They were watching him
see
this
it.
whole time he was on shift. I don't know how they got my email. I never provided any of my information. Till this day, I still feel sick because my manager was starting to be nice to me that day.
He looked at
I
you for
can't go
help
back
and
on
you
it, though,
literally ran away. This is the biggest coward ever. Like, what a weak little man. Little wannabe man. Here's the next one. Something was happening in my house. Alright, let's see what's happening
This
in your house,
happened
boo.
over 25 years ago, but the memories are still fresh on my mind. I moved in with my boyfriend, who was a musician, and I wasn't working at the time. Our
Alright.
budget was small, so when we were offered super cheap rent for our house, we jumped at the opportunity.
Oh no,
It
it's
should
cheap
have
for
been
a
a red
reason.
flag at the time, but we were in no position to refuse. It was far from the city center. We
Great.
had almost no furniture and lived quite the frugal life. But we
The
were
heck is
happy to have
frugal?
our own space. The house was simple but cozy and nice. And there was another room in the backyard with no windows. But
called a
only
shed,
chair right in the
sweetie.
middle of it. Needless to say, it was super creepy, so I avoided that part of the house. While my boyfriend was working all day in a music school, I took care of the house. In the beginning, everything was fine. I felt happy there. But after a few weeks, weird things started happening.
Boy, of course, because of this shelf.
One day, I put
Or
some of the
shelf,
cans
this-
and
this-
ingredients
what did I
on
call
the
it?
kitchen table
Shed.
while I was cooking.
I said shelf. Good
However,
job,
when
Trini.
I turned around to grab them, they weren't there. At first, I just thought that I had forgotten to pick
That's
them up from the
fire.
shelves. But when cans and knives started showing up in random places in the house, like the bedroom, I started paying more attention. My boyfriend also experienced the same things, and whenever he found the missing items, he just laughed about it. However, things started to change and took a turn for the worse when we decided to clean the backyard. We cut the grass, threw away the trash, and decided to move the chair in the middle of the room. So
I
my
wouldn't go in
boyfriend
there. What
picked
you
it
going in
up
there
and
for?
left it in front of the house to be collected. He told me that he felt sick the moment he entered that room. I thought
Why?
he was overreacting, but when I entered it, I immediately felt a heavy weight on my chest and a piercing headache. However, everything would be fine again once we left that area.
Jeez.
It was scary,
That's
so we
like
went to a local
demonic.
church, got some holy water and salt from the priest, and cleaned the room. We thought that
You
everything
think that's
would
gonna
be
get rid of a
okay now.
demon? That'll get
My
rid of a
boyfriend
spirit,
had
but
to
not a
leave for
demon.
work, and I continued cleaning inside the house. But I didn't feel calm and perky as I usually did, because I constantly had the feeling that someone was watching me. I even checked the doors and windows to see if there was anyone around, but no one was there.
Who puts their hand on the
And I
glass,
still
though?
felt uncomfortable and was paranoid all day. When my boyfriend returned home in the evening, we started hearing noises coming from outside. This area was kind of dangerous,
Kind of
especially at
noises.
night, so my boyfriend was super careful when going outside. He thought that it could be a robbery. Everything was alright, except for the fact
The chair?
that the chair was
Bro, I
back
knew
inside
it!
the room.
I knew it!
It was in
I
the
knew the
same
chair was gonna
place
be
as
back.
before. So he got really mad when he saw it, thinking that some punk was playing a trick on us. He went outside and decided to grab the chair, break it, and throw it away. But I could see the panic on his face when he couldn't move the chair.
Uh-oh.
For whatever reason, it was completely fixed to the ground. Not like it was glued to the floor, but more like it weighed 10 tons.
Like
No
somebody's
matter how
sitting
hard
on
he
it.
tried, it wouldn't move. Because he had to come up with another plan, he ran inside, grabbed holy water and salt, made a circle around the chair, and started praying.
Okay, this makes sense.
Suddenly, we heard a loud bang. Thousands, maybe millions of cockroaches started
Bro,
coming
I told
out
you
of
it's a
every
demon.
sewer
I
hole
told you.
outside of the house. I am terribly terrified of cockroaches.
That's demonic activity.
So I
I'm
guess this
terrified
was
of
my
roaches.
worst nightmare.
I almost
We
ate
left the
one
chair,
time.
and we
A white
rushed
cockroach.
inside
And
the
after
house.
that, like,
And after we checked everywhere in the
I don't
house,
mess with roaches.
we
I can't
locked
do it.
all the doors and windows, and then ran away to my mom's house. As the incident happened
Not
on a
right now,
Friday
baby.
evening, we
I'll
decided
come
to
in your
stay
room
at
after
her
I'm done
house until
streaming.
Sunday to calm
You mean
down.
watching your video?
On
Yes.
Sunday afternoon,
What?
we returned
I thought
home
you was
and
gonna
everything
stream.
felt
I
normal.
am streaming. I'm streaming
There
the video.
were no traces of insects around, and the chair was still in its
How are you
place.
streaming your
But
video?
the
Don't worry about it. Go
house
play your game.
seemed quiet.
Okay.
Make sure you close the door, please.
I started relaxing a bit, and as I had just refilled the fridge on Friday with groceries, I decided to start cooking
Chat.
something
I'll
nice
be
for
right back. You
dinner.
guys enjoy the video.
However,
won't
when
be
I
too
opened the
long.
fridge, I saw an image I will
Oh,
never
God.
forget.
Somebody better fill
All
me
the
in on what
food
happened.
was full of maggots, and it was almost completely decomposed. The smell was horrible inside. I have never seen anything like it before. I mean, the fridge was still on and seemed to be working, but the food was not frozen, and this level of decomposition could not be reached in less than 48 hours. It was the most disgusting thing I've ever seen. I screamed and showed it to my boyfriend, who also couldn't understand what happened. But there was nothing we could do with the food or the fridge. Later, we finally decided to give the house back, and we moved out to another city. And fortunately, I've never experienced anything like that again. But that incident still gives
goodness.
me the chills.
What did I miss? Oh, here it is. Going to play Among
This
Us.
happened to
Here's
me
lurk.
recently.
Thank you for the lurk. I really appreciate
I was on
it.
my way home from the bank when someone suddenly called. When I looked back, I could see a man in his late 40s on the road. And he had pretty long, shaggy hair that almost reached his shoulders. Besides that, there were so many small scars on his face, which made me feel really uncomfortable. I asked him if he needed any help, and he asked me for some food because he had a 5-year-old girl who was starving. However, it was somehow odd. The way he spoke didn't sound pitiful to me at all. And he was saying it quickly, as if he had memorized the lines. I stared blankly at him for a minute, and then felt anxious. I'm sorry. I have to go now.
I'm
I
sorry.
left abruptly.
Lethos now. What
Hey,
up?
hey.
Welcome.
He kept
We're just
calling
watching some
from
creepy
behind
animated
me, and then
videos.
started yelling at me because I didn't turn my head around. I was so scared that I eventually passed my house and ran straight
Yeah, that's
into
what we're doing
another
right
alleyway.
now. Just chilling.
Because it was especially
trying to do
hot that
something
day,
right now.
my town was pretty quiet, and that only made things scarier. Now that I think about it,
think
this
that's what that
situation
password
was
is.
really creepy. I don't even know where he came from. I didn't hear any footsteps,
It's not.
but when I looked back, the man walked right in front of me, asking for food
That doesn't
again.
look like a man. That looks like a woman.
One of my friends got married not too long ago. She was living with her husband and mother-in-law, who was the type to nag a lot to her. For your information, my friend used to be a little chubby, and because of it, her mother-in-law scolded her frequently
Look at that
and
mole on her
prevented her
nose.
from eating food.
Thanks for your time.
It was
Going further,
ridiculous.
Just like coming on less
When I heard
popular
that,
streams to
I
check
met
out.
her at a
Welcome back, Holly.
cafe, and I could
you.
see that
Bye.
she
Thanks for
didn't
stopping
look
by.
well.
Appreciate
So I
it.
asked her what happened, and then she said something really creepy. My friend couldn't hold back her hunger after midnight, so she snuck into the kitchen quietly. When she heard her mother-in-law snoring in her sleep, she started eating some of the food in the refrigerator. Suddenly, she felt something was wrong. She felt like someone was watching her, so she turned around and her mother-in-law was staring at my friend. Her eyes were raised while she made a snoring sound with her mouth on purpose. A few days ago, my dad lost his shoes at a restaurant. When he checked the CCTV, he saw that an old man went outside wearing his shoes. At first, my dad decided to just think that he made a donation. But the next day, a package arrived at his company office. As he opened the box, he saw a new pair of the exact same shoes that he had lost the day before. And the sender was unknown. Let's think about it. My dad lost his shoes just yesterday, but when he checked the delivery date, it was dated a few days ago. Dad was just satisfied with the new pair of shoes that he received,
Hey, we've
but my
seen this
mom and I
already.
are still feeling uncomfortable and weird about it. I
Let's see
mean,
if there's another one that we could watch.
I was 20 at the time when this happened. I still
20.
remember this as a
Yo, what
vivid
up, the
memory
real
in my
troll?
brain
Thanks
that
for the
would never
follow.
get
I really
erased.
appreciate it, my guy.
One day, I was at a club with a few friends.
Are you a real
I
troll?
saw a cute girl, which was totally my type at first glance. She had blonde hair and deep brown eyes. Her nose was tiny and cute. Her lips were red like a rose. I approached her and I asked if she wanted a drink or something. She said yeah, and we drank a lot. She told me to come by her place. I hesitated at first, but soon I agreed. I told my friends that I was leaving early, and we booked a cab. We got in the cab, and 15 minutes later, we arrived at her house. Her apartment had a 2-floor. Nothing
all the bars
special,
on the
but
windows.
just normal. We stepped inside, and all of a sudden, I smelled something rotten.
Oh,
I got
great.
a bit nauseous and asked her if I could use the bathroom. She smiled and said yes.
Oh,
I rushed
boy.
in, and as I did, the smell got stronger.
There's somebody dead in our bathtub
That's
or something?
where the smell was coming from. At first, I didn't pay attention and puked into the sink. I thought that I had drunk a bit too much,
Ew.
but it was not. Just then, I heard a splash of water right beside the bathtub. I turned and opened the shower curtain, and then what I saw made my heart drop. A dead body of a boy around my age,
Oh,
mutilated,
wow.
was lying in the bathtub obliquely. As I got closer, I realized that his right leg was cut off too. I was freaked out. I wanted to scream, but it didn't come out. But I decided not to go outside, because she might be a psychopath killer and could kill me too.
You could
I
fight
tried
her
to find an
off.
escape. Then I spotted something that I wasn't expecting. A small pocket knife stuck out from his jean pocket.
Okay.
I cautiously
Some form
took
of
the
protection.
knife and flicked the door open. There was no one outside, and only that girl was sitting on the steps.
The cute little girl.
I asked her what was in the bathtub, and suddenly, her expression got different. She flashed a maniac grin, and then she took out something from her back. A knife. All of a sudden, she lunged toward me, but I dodged it. I took out my knife and swung around as soon as she came to me and kicked her. She let out a scream as she fell to the ground. I heard some noise upstairs, but I wasn't going to check that out. I sprinted out the door and ran 2 blocks straight without stopping.
Oh my god.
And then called the cops. The cops searched the whole house and arrested 3 people, all charged for murdering innocent young boys.
Oh my gosh.
Then I took a cab back to my house. I called and told my parents about this incident. I wasn't able to sleep that night at all.
I wouldn't be able to sleep for a
This
while.
was the scariest I've ever experienced. And who knew what would have happened if I didn't find that knife?
My mom used to work as a taxi driver, and she started to go out with one of her coworkers. Let's call him Larry, for the sake of the story. He seemed like a nice guy at first.
Larry.
Finally, they got married and had a daughter, and we will call her Ruby. But once they got married, things started to change immediately.
Of course they do, right?
He was not
of
a
course
nice guy after all. If something didn't go his way, he always ran to his mom's house. Because in her mind,
Ew,
he
she
was
turned him
still
into a
her
baby.
baby, even though he was a 50-year-old man. He was such a mama's boy. Mom and Larry would break up and make up a lot, so that was just normal behavior. But when he got drunk, sometimes we didn't let him inside the house as he can become a violent person.
Great.
He'd break in by smashing a window to get in on occasion.
Aw, thanks,
He would not
Josh.
hurt us, but broke things like a TV or a family
appreciate
member's
it.
computer, which made us terrified. The final straw
for all the subs,
was when
I really
he came
appreciate
into our
it.
house one day.
I can't play
He
yet.
kidnapped
I'm waiting on my
Ruby
controller.
and ran away for 2 days until the police arrested him and brought Ruby back home, even though Larry was her dad. Mom was literally traumatized by this incident. We decided to move out of our house, and it was a great idea to move away from him at a safe distance. We had none of his belongings, so he had no reason to come crawling back to us. So we moved out, and as time went by, we settled into the new house. We all started school, and I always woke
4
up extra
a.m..
early to shower and play video games before I went to school.
Oh wow, that's dedication.
But this
I'm not waking
one
up that
day,
early.
When I woke up at 4 a.m. and finished taking a shower,
If he's
I
a
came
troll,
out of
then
the
he's
bathroom
he might be a good
and
troll.
looked out
Because
of
I'm a
the
troll.
window unintentionally. It was still dark, and there was a man who was walking up and down the path by the side of our house. Suddenly, he looked up and stared at me. He realized that I saw him. I stood there and did nothing. Then he walked away and stood under the streetlight. It was Larry.
Oh, of course it was Larry.
He had the most malevolent smile
That doesn't
I've
look
ever
very
seen.
malevolent.
He came over to the mailbox saying that he was sorry. He said
Get
that he wanted
that
to talk to my
outta
mom so they
here.
could start over again. I ran to Mom and woke her up, but we decided to call the police instead of letting him inside.
Hold on,
About
before
10
I
minutes
continue
later,
this, let me do something real quick. Where's the remove button? Dang it! How do I get rid of it? Controller, there we go. Remove. Yes. There we go. Turn the brightness down on the light too.
later, the police came to arrest him. They found out that he drove a car while drunk and left it halfway up the road. And when they searched him, he had a surgical scalpel in his pocket. He told the police that it was just a joke, but no one believed him.
That's a little creepy. The true horror ghost tour story. It's a lot of words.
When I was a kid, I was really into paranormal things, such as ghosts and spirits.
Samesies.
So I always got really excited for Halloween. On one Halloween,
My
my
ankle,
parents took me
it's
and my
still
brother
like
to a
hurting
ghost
me.
tour
I'm trying
in
not
the
to put
city.
too much weight on it. Sitting here
During
is
the tour,
like
we
super
would visit
uncomfortable because
real
all the
haunted
blood is
houses,
rushing to it.
which were said to have some
But
really
I'm gonna do this for
violent
like
ghosts.
another like
I couldn't be more
I don't
excited.
know. I don't know.
We
When my
arrived
foot
at the
starts to hurt too
location
much
for the
and I'll
tour
stop
meetup, an
streaming.
empty parking lot. But we were a bit early and nobody else had arrived yet. It was a chilly October night, so my parents decided that we should find a building to wait in until more people arrive.
Yeah.
We walked over to the building that the parking lot was meant for, an old hotel, and entered the vestibule.
Great. This is gonna be some
We
crazy
tried
stuff.
to fully enter the building, but we found that the doors leading to the lobby inside were locked.
It's like me doing my
After a few
census.
minutes of standing around, I started to feel strange. A nauseous feeling had swept my stomach. Goosebumps ran up and down my arms, and a piercing feeling of being watched was stabbing, almost burning my back. Looking around, it was obvious that me and my family were the
Girl?
only ones inside the vestibule.
I saw the pic.
The
you
lobby of the
posted, it was
building
super
was
swollen.
also
yeah, it was
devoid
like
of
really
people.
big. I took another picture and
Once
it's all
we saw
like
people
yellow
enter the
and
parking
blue
lot,
and
we left,
shiz.
and I felt better.
That means it's healing.
And after that, I was shocked to see the first place we stopped on the tour was the building my
I
family
like just
had
got
been
done doing the
waiting in.
paperwork for my
Now,
workers' comp.
this
I got it
building
all
we
right
won't
here. I
enter
gotta fax it
because the
tomorrow.
spirit inside here is more violent than the others will encounter. The guide stated, "In here, we have the Shadow Man. He doesn't terrorize the whole building, just the area that you enter through. He's been known to slap and scratch people coming inside."
Oh, that's
A
great.
few pictures were passed around. All of a sudden, I don't know how and why, but I recognized that an inky black figure stood against the door's windows. Its eyes
There
were
he
glowing
is.
white, and it had long fingers and pointed nails. It was freaky to think
Look
that
at her
I might
face.
have
Yeah,
been
look at her
targeted by the
face.
Shadow Man.
She's scared.
But I didn't
I'd
think
be
much of
scared
it until
too.
after the tour when my family went back home. I started to complain to my mom that my back was itching and burning, so she grabbed some
I know,
ointment
right? The
and
face
told me
was
she would
really
look at
funny.
it. We thought it was just a bug bite. We had been walking around outside.
It's
at
probably a
night
handprint. I bet you it's a handprint. Or like
when she
nails
lifted my
scratched.
shirt, she asked when I had scratched my back. I told her I hadn't. She took a picture on her phone and showed it to me. I was met with a long
Ooh.
red scratch leading from my shoulder to the middle of my back.
Damn.
The skin on my back was a shade of red, like a rash. Me and all of my family couldn't say anything, but just
Damn.
turned back straight to our house.
How do ghosts do
The
that?
Shadow Man had got me.
Went in the wrong right and almost got killed. Wow.
This is not about my story, but someone from my church, and he wanted to share his experience with anyone else. He's a 32-year-old man, and his pseudo name is Mark. He's a fairly big guy, and this situation took place when he was on his way home from work. He said that he had lost his phone 1 week before this whole situation happened, so he
Okay.
couldn't call and get any help during the story.
Okay.
It was quite
You're
late,
you're
around 11
screwed
p.m.
without a phone.
He had finished work and was walking to a taxi stop location, and when he got there, a few people were standing around waiting as well. After about 2 minutes, he noticed that there was a minivan approaching. Usually, minivans are cheaper than taxis, and he felt tired that day, so he decided to take the minivan. He sat on a seat, and there was a young boy seated in the passenger side next to the
Yeah,
driver.
this driver
who was
looks mad
collecting the fare.
sketch. I'm not
And
getting in
then,
there.
2 other boys who looked like teenagers also boarded the minivan and sat in the seats in front of him. Once the minivan took off, after about 5
Over the
minutes,
wheels aren't spinning.
the boy asked if they would like to drink some Coke. The boys accepted and started drinking.
He's driving with his hat covering his eyes.
they also
that
gave it to
and
Mark.
he's like you're wearing
Mark was
rubber
also
gloves.
feeling
Like what
thirsty, so he
are
took
you
it,
doing?
but only a sip. Not much later, he started feeling drowsy.
Oh boy.
Just before he about laid his head on the seat beside him, he noticed that those 2 boys were already knocked out.
They got drugged.
After he laid his head down, he heard noises coming from the back seats. 2 people were talking in a different language. The car was
Is this
passing a
human
big
trafficking?
signboard that showed Crest Chicken Farm. And then he finally passed out. When he got up, he found himself inside a big shed-like barn, and there were some tools on a big table.
Uh-oh.
He was on the floor, and the other 2 teenage boys were laying next to him. He still felt a bit drowsy, but he managed to get himself up as he was looking for an
'Cause
escape.
he's a grown man, so
He saw that the 2
effects-
boys were still passed out,
Yeah,
so
he's too
he
big
tried
for the
waking
same
them,
type
but
of
they wouldn't
drugs.
budge. As Mark was kind of a big man, he tried to see if he could carry one of them, but it was hard to do because even Mark was having a hard time to stand properly.
Oh boy.
And then he heard voices. He took a peek from the door, and 3 people were walking toward the big shed, coming from a house on the hill, which was quite close to the shed.
Great. They're
Mark
gonna
panicked
die.
and tried to look for another exit. He was looking around the place, and he found one at the end of the shed, luckily. He approached quietly and escaped as fast as he could.
What about the other boys?
At this point, his vision was all blurry, but he managed to find a fence door and unlocked it. He heard the people shouting, but he ignored. He just kept on running. When he finally reached his house, it was early morning, around 5 a.m.
I wonder if they followed
His
him.
wife was up all night waiting for him and ran out the front door as soon as she saw him. He collapsed and slept for almost the whole day.
Wow.
When he woke up and finally got a chance to explain to his wife what had transpired that night, he remembered about the other 2 boys
Oh my
who were
god, the
still there.
boys.
Then he contacted the police immediately. He told the police about the road signs and a big billboard for Crest Chicken Farm and other things that he could remember. About 2 weeks after, there was a police report about how they found 2 teenage boys' bodies in a lake
Oh,
and
they killed the
advised that
boys.
when they examined the bodies, all their organs were missing. Mark
Oh,
just
Black
stood
Market.
in fear. And as the event was too traumatic for him, Mark had to quit a job for a while.
Wow. That's tough. True horrible camp story animated.
This happened when it was our school's camping day. All the grades went to each other's places, and our teacher had taken the 6 students to this large site that was quite cheap. It started off all right. I got a room with some of my friends at the time, and my closer friends were in the next room. The first incident started when I was the only one in my room, still packing mine and the other people's stuff away. I was on the bottom bunk, letting my mate take the top. When I looked
nice.
up was some sentence, and it said, "Hello, you are going next,"
Oh, that's
with a
great.
creepy smile. On the second day, we all went outside. There were teepee tents next to a
He got
field.
me on.
I hung out in one with one of my friends. Some others hung out in a second tent, but in the third tent, I saw a shadow with a knife.
Oh wow, that's
I
great.
told the teacher and another student who went in, but didn't come out. But nobody believed me, and there was nobody inside the tent. I thought something was really weird.
What the
On
heck?
the third day, 3 of my roommates were out on a day trip with some others, which I was going to do the next day. I had done a mud course, and after that, I decided to have a shower. The water was black and disgusting, which added to this horrible week.
Ew.
All of a sudden, when I was still in the shower booth, the doorknob was shaking. I screamed, and when I got out, I saw a handwriting, "You won't leave alive," on the
Bro,
wall.
chill.
Then I saw a shadow in the window. My room's door was locked while I was having a shower, so no one could enter in our room. The fourth day, I was taking a walk someplace that no one knew, and then I found a huge knife and blood-soaked clothes.
It's
I just
real.
hoped that this stupid and terrible camp would finish soon. Then the last night, I woke up in the middle of the night because I saw the same shadow leaving my room. And
Bro, go
there
back
was
to
a
sleep.
knife on the
Just
floor.
go back to sleep.
Again. I couldn't sleep the rest of that night. The last day, I was left to clean the room and set the beds for the students, whoever would use it next. When I was about to finish,
Wow, vehicle for no reason.
I saw the door and it said, "You are lucky you survived. I didn't have enough time, but next, I will not let you go."
Oh my
I panicked,
God.
so I ran from that creepy room. I told my teacher. However, by the time we got back, it was gone.
How? How does it disappear like
As
that?
I got onto the bus, I looked in the window of that room, and the shadow stared back at me, with a decapitated head in one hand, and in the other hand, the same knife I had seen twice. Later, when I came back from the camp, I heard about that place. It was an orphanage and a mental institution that had many mysterious deaths. To this day, I wondered what would have happened if I'd spent longer than 5 days at that place.
You'd be dead. No doubt. No doubt. A TikTok
This
story?
happened pretty recently.
Great.
About 3 weeks ago. Myself and 3 friends were hanging out at a shopping center one evening. We were messing around posting clips on TikTok. Then one of my friends started laughing. And I asked her what she was laughing at. She told me that guy behind us kept staring at me. When I turned around,
He's not cute, he looks
it was
crazy.
some older guy just watching me. He had black sunglasses, a cap, an old Adidas tracksuit with scuffed up shoes, and had a disgusting looking beard. My friends thought it was hilarious, but I found it really weird.
Yeah, that's mad
Then
creepy.
another one of my friends said she thinks that guy lives on her street, about a few houses down from her.
Oh, great.
She said that he actually follows her on TikTok. At that point, I quickly got my phone out to check if he was following me, and he was. I had to block him because he seemed a bit creepy. We went to get McDonald's before we went home, and I received a message on TikTok from someone. It was that guy who had been following us. His name was Greg, and he wrote, "Why did you block
I'd
me?"
be like, cause you're
with 2
creepy.
emojis. One was a crying face, and the other one was an angry face. He had actually created another account that day in the shopping center. I blocked that account as well, hoping that would be the end of it.
That's never the end of it. You know
I
how many
didn't
accounts
mention it to
people
my
can
friends
make?
this time, knowing they would
I
just
know.
laugh.
A lot. I had to
That
deal
night,
with it.
I was up late and had Netflix on in the background as I was chatting with my friends on Facebook while scrolling through TikTok. I got up to use the bathroom, and when I returned, I had 3 messages from my friends, all saying the same thing. All were things like, "Who's in your room?" and "What's up with your last post?" I asked them what they were talking about, and they told me to check my TikTok, so I did. It was a clip of my bedroom. It was a clip of someone picking up my phone and recording the inside of my room. At that point, I heard a creaking. Then I heard a man's voice say,
I literally have chills.
"Sorry,
This is why his name.
please don't
Why his
scream,"
name gotta be Greg? Why is your name Greg?
and turned to see my closet door
I
slightly
literally
open.
goosebumps.
I started to scream when the same guy who had been following us burst out of my closet and tried to cover my mouth. Thank God I screamed and it was enough for my parents to hear. They came upstairs and my dad tackled the guy to the floor. The
beat
police
him
were
up,
called,
Dad.
And he was arrested. We were informed that the guy had straight up admitted to stalking and breaking and entering. One of my friends pointed out, if I go back and look at the post on TikTok from when we were in the shopping center, you can see Greg is in almost all of those
Bro,
pictures.
he dressed up like a
somewhere in the
lion.
background.
That's dedication.
I haven't heard what's going to happen
Job,
to
Greg.
yet, but I just hope he won't ever come near us again.
Under her bed. Someone tried to kidnap me when I went canoeing. Canoeing?
It happened about 6 months ago. I was in a scouting group, and
Who
at the
was
end of the
canoeing?
semester with the last group meeting, we always did something special.
Yo, Kimba, do you go
But this
canoeing?
time was a little
Is that an
different.
activity that you do?
Instead
I
of
don't
going
do it.
indoor climbing, our scout leaders decided to go canoeing. I was really excited about it because I'd never canoed before. As always with every trip, we should have to be an hour earlier as we were riding our bikes to the destination. I noticed something. It was a creepy-looking old man staring at us, with an almost psychopathic-like grin on his face.
Why they always gotta have a weird grin on
His
their
clothes
face?
looked old and dirty. But I shook it off, thinking that even if the guy was some kind of creep, it still wouldn't matter because we were with a group.
Yeah, group.
As we arrived at our destination, the guy from the canoe company told us how to row and that we had to choose our buddy to canoe with. I chose my friend Noah that we've been friends since elementary.
Aw.
We got to go first, and it was sort of a race, so we were happy to go first. But within 10 minutes, we got passed by my little brother and his
Oh
friend.
wow, your little brother
It went
beat
pretty
you,
normal
bro?
after that. We saw this
That's
guy in the middle of the
crazy.
stream in a boat, just fishing and sipping
Oh,
a
of course
beer.
he's there, right?
10 minutes after, I saw the same guy I saw on the way here. He was
Weirdo,
just
I
standing on the
agree.
ground next to the stream with that same awful grin on his face. I thought of it as being a cliche, as this always happens in the movies. Noah also said, it's probably just a coincidence. He said this place is a popular camping place, especially at this time of the year. To be honest, he wasn't that scary that time. He might just be an old crazy man trying to scare some of the kids. So I just canoed on, and half an hour later, we were at the end. I got wet, so I grabbed a towel, and we went back to the meeting place. After that, I was going home alone, riding my bike. And I saw that same old guy in a car with another man who was sitting back seat. And they started slowing down. And the man asked me, "Hey kid, looks like you need a ride."
Uh-oh.
The
You're
man
like, "No,
behind
no,
the wheel
sir."
said nothing. And I tried to say it as polite as possible. "Oh, no, thanks. I'm almost home anyway." As I looked at the man again, and I noticed fury and madness in his eyes, which I didn't know why. I just got scared, so I pedaled my bike out of fear of being kidnapped. But the car started chasing me, and they blocked the road. It was around 9 p.m. in a suburban neighborhood.
Jeez.
Nobody was out on the street.
Bro, turn around and ride the other way.
As that guy opened the door, he jumped out and pushed me aside from my bike. I saw him with a gun in his hand. Then he finally knocked me out unconscious.
Wow, this kid
I don't
literally put up
remember
no
how
fight.
many hours passed. However, I could hear the sirens dimly. 2 police officers saw this car was speeding, so they were chasing him. I also heard gunshots, which made me so scared. And then they shouted, "Shots fired! Shots fired!" 2 minutes later, the gunshots stopped, and the trunk where I was opened. It was a police officer. He took me out and told me, "It's safe now. Don't worry." Later, an
Yeah,
ambulance arrived
especially
soon, so
yeah,
I
being
could go
stuck
to
in
the
a trunk,
hospital
like-
and met my parents there.
That's pretty scary.
Now 6 months passed, but I still think about what if the police officers didn't see them, and they took me to the place where they were heading.
You'd be dead. That's what would happen. You'd be dead. Done. If you're claustrophobic, oh my god, you would be dead too. You would die before they even
When I
get a
was
chance to
9,
kill you.
My father had died. I didn't know how and why. I was just sad about it. I soon got over it and would just look at the pictures I had of him. After some time had passed, I constantly saw him. Whenever I saw him, I told my mom, "Daddy's home, Mommy. Daddy's back from his long trip." Well, she thought those were recurring dreams, and maybe a sign that I wasn't handling his death well. Whenever I told
No
her,
duh.
she would just take me and my sister out to get some ice cream. I soon stopped telling her, because after we moved across the city where I lived, which is Reno, Nevada, I still saw him sometimes in my 6th grade class. One time, when my best friend and I were working during math class, I saw my dad sitting beside me. Then I whispered to my friend that my dad was right next to me and that he constantly followed me around. But he was different from how I remembered, because there was always a bullet hole on the left side
You've
of
never
his
seen
forehead
any?
near his hairline. In the 7th grade,
I've seen
he still
some.
followed me around and always
I've seen
frowned every
demon
time he
ones,
saw
too.
my stepdad either hitting me or screaming at me. My stepdad was kind of tough, so he did that to me sometimes.
What a jerk.
Whenever my stepdad would enter the room, he got mad at him. I heard my dad gently one time in a dream tell me that he had killed himself because of my mom.
Aw.
He said that my mom cheated on him and always yelled at him saying he wasn't good at being a father. Over the summer between 9th and 10th grade, I was in summer school taking the second semester of Algebra 1. I was sitting at the front by the door when all of a sudden, something outside caught my attention. My dad was staring in through the window of the door. His eyes were empty. I was horrified being watched by him. He came into the room and sat at the empty desk next to me. And I knew that he was not the same. I felt something was going wrong. I've grown up now, but I still see him a lot.
Oh
and
my
he's
God.
always whispering in my ear and telling me that my mom is the one who should have died, not him.
That was actually pretty creepy.
My name is Jude, and I'm 27 years old.
Went from
I've always
friendly
loved
to
going
really straight.
camping
Yeah,
ever
that's
since I was a
actually
young
really
boy.
creepy.
Some of my earliest memories were of me sitting around the fire with mom, dad, and grandfathers, singing songs and telling stories. Whenever we told stories, we always ended the night on a scary story, right before going to bed. And my grandfather's stories were always the best. His descriptions gave me chills as he described vivid characters and monsters from his imagination. I always loved to hear his stories. But once, when I was 10 years old, something happened that scares me to this day.
Let's hear it, kid.
One cool autumn day, my parents decided to take me camping with my grandfather, as we always did around that time of year. We arrived at the campsite around 6 o'clock, and on the way in, I saw that the campsite we were driving into was different than the one we usually camped at. The entrance to the campground seemed old, and a lichen-covered stone sign with the name of the grounds greeted us as we drove in. We arrived and set up our tents. After eating dinner and cleaning up, we sat around the campfire as usual to tell our stories. I can't remember all of the stories told, except for the last, my grandfather's story.
Okay, let's hear
I
it.
remember the smell of the burning wood and burnt orange sunlight casting long shadows off into the trees behind us as he began to tell his tale. He started by saying that it was a true story from his childhood, and he had waited to tell it to me until I was old enough. This grabbed my attention, as usually my grandfather told fake stories and never about himself.
I really want to hear the story.
He said that he had been camping at the same campsite we were staying at when his story occurred. He started by saying the campground had been built back in the 1930s by CCC workers during the Great Depression, which, looking back, explained the oldness of the park. But at the time, as a kid, I really didn't care. He said that one night, around 1960-something, while camping with his father, he was fishing at the lake down at the end of the long hiking trail that led back to the campground. His dad told him it was time to leave, and they started off down the trail. As he was walking, he began to feel a strange sensation, as if he was being followed. He turned back, but supposedly saw nothing several times. He kept walking until he said he was stopped by a long, eerie moan rippling out from behind the trees. He described it as sounding like a ghost or a person being slowly injured. He and his dad stopped in their tracks. His dad apparently tried to tell him it was a coyote, but my grandfather knew better. He told me it wasn't a coyote. He believed it was something else, something more sinister. Nevertheless, after this encounter, he returned back to the campsite with his dad and never saw or heard anything else. He claimed that this was true, and obviously he wouldn't be telling this to us if he hadn't been affected by it. But to me, it seems silly. Scared by a noise? Come on. Anyway, about 2 days later, I was walking back to the site with my grandfather from a long day of hiking and picking wild berries in the nearby forest. Both of us were carrying heavy baskets full of berries to bring home. The sun was setting, and I noticed the long shadows peering out from behind the trees. As it began to grow darker, dead darker, the trail seemed to grow longer and longer. I began to feel a weird sensation in my stomach, like I was being watched. After about 5 minutes, the feeling began to grow, and I looked at my grandfather. He looked right back at me with the same fearful eyes. I was in shock. Did he feel the same feeling? Then I remembered his story about the way he felt the night he heard the noise. I began to walk faster, and so did my grandfather, without saying a word. After about 20 minutes, it was completely dark, and our arms ached for carrying the berries up the trail. Right as I turned a corner, I heard a long, eerie moan. My heart stopped as I froze in fear. My grandfather looked at me and said, "It's time to go." With that, we began wailing swiftly down the trail as fast as we could without dropping our berries.
Babe?
Just
are you
as I
actually
began
listening
to
to the
relax,
story, or you just stopped
I heard
by?
it again. Only this time, it was
Oh,
much
is it?
louder.
Oh,
It sounded like someone being
God, I'm
murdered.
so cold.
It was terrifying. It came from directly behind us, and I felt a burning sensation in the back of my head. I dared not look back. I sat in fear, wondering of what could have made the noise, when suddenly I heard my grandfather scream, "Run!" I whipped my head around, and in the dark, foggy light, I squinted and I saw a tall, slender black shadow dart between the trees about 100 feet behind us on the trail. I instantly dropped my bucket and ran like the wind down the trail as fast as I could. My grandfather was behind me. I became worried about him, as he was an old man, and I was afraid he might hurt himself running down the rocky trail.
Hopefully not.
But I didn't stop, nor did he until we reached the campsite. That night, I sat in my tent, heart racing, thinking about what could have made that noise. After we came back home, we never returned to the old campsite. And to this day, that experience still haunts me.
Alright, chat. I'm getting a headache. And I am tired. So I'm gonna call it a night for tonight. But I'll be back tomorrow. I'll probably play some like Valorant tomorrow, since that I have to do on mouse and keyboard. But yeah, and I'm still looking into getting the emotes and stuff. The girl's making them for me. So if you guys will have subscriber emotes, so make sure you subscribe. Peace out.